Techtopia er en ugenlig podcast om mennesker og deres teknologi, udgivet af Ingeniørforeningen Ida i samarbejde med .dk og Ida Forsikring. Mit navn er Henrik Føns, og det er mig, der bestemmer i
Techtopia.
For tiden har hver dag sin dronehistorie fra Ukraine. Vi hører om vildfarne droner i Baltikum og Rumænien, og vi hører om ukrainske droneangreb på Moskva og Sankt Petersborg og på russisk infrastruktur, der ligger langt fra frontlinjen. Og frontlinjen, ja, den er blevet sådan et mennesketomt sted, hvor man ikke skal stikke snuden for langt frem, uden at en drone ser den og tager affære. Det startede beskedent med hobbydroner, som opfindsomme ukrainer forsynet med en sprængladning, som de kunne dumpe ned i russiske tanks. Men i dag er der tale om en industri, der er så avanceret og produktiv, at Ukraine kan eksportere droner til Saudi Arabien, som har brug for at forsvare sig mod iranske droneangreb, og man taler sågar om et samarbejde med USA, fordi de heller ikke helt har forstået, hvad en dronekrig egentlig er. Det har folkene i Ukraine til gengæld. For nogle måneder siden, der mødte jeg en ung kvinde fra Ukraine, som arbejder for Victory Drones, der er sådan en slags hjemmeværn i Ukraine. De uddanner for eksempel civile ukrainere til at blive dronepiloter, så de kan forsvare deres lokalområde mod russiske angreb. Af hensyn til hendes sikkerhed, ja, så optræder hun her kun med fornavn, som muligvis ikke er hendes eget. Men jeg mødte hende et par gange i selskab med hendes danske samarbejdspartnere, så hendes sande identitet og troværdighed som kilde er blevet tjekket af.
Hello, my name is Valeria, and I represent Victory Drones, which is the biggest civil military corporation project currently in Ukraine.
And what is Victory Drones?
It's hard to describe it like shortly because of how many things it is, but if I had to, I would say it's a militarization of society, technological militarization of society, which means that we are counting on technology to be saving lives. The slogan is use robots, not human lives. And the hope is that by using technologies, we can boost our defense capability while saving people's lives. And we work both with civilians as well as with military in those aspects.
Victory Drones har et slogan, det hedder brug robotter, ikke menneskeliv. Det handler simpelthen om at bruge teknologien til at sørge for, at færre mennesker bliver slået ihjel i kamphandlinger. Så Victory Drones samarbejder både med civile aktører og militæret om løsninger, der kan gøre fremtidens forsvar mere effektivt og præcist og spare menneskeliv.
And if you would explain what we do, it is mostly education, community building, and advocating. So we're this intermediary force between all the players in the defense field, bringing everybody together, bringing structure to places where it is otherwise absent, and bringing flexibility to structures that are very rigid and unflexible to respond to the fast dynamics on the battlefield, like militaries often are, even during wartime. So that is what we try to do. We try to try new stuff and bring in new technologies and experiments while the military cannot afford to do those things, does not have the flexibility to do those things.
Victory Drones arbejder for at skabe fleksibilitet i de strukturer, der ofte er tunge og langsomme, og ikke er så gode til at reagere på den hurtige udvikling på slagmarken. Når militæret ikke har mulighed for eller frihed til at eksperimentere, ja, så er det Victory Drones, der tester nye teknologier og metoder i praksis. Og det har blandt andet ført til etablering af verdens første droneskole, bygget på et militært træningscenter, hvilket er et konkret eksempel på, hvordan innovation og eksperimenter kan styrke fremtidens forsvar.
This way, for example, we have built the first FPV school in the world on the basis of the military training center.
And what is an FPV?
An FPV is what used to be in civilian life a racing drone. Right, so this would be drones that will be assembled by radio engineers and enthusiasts and then used for racing until we had very small and good quality cameras, and then they started using FPVs for filmmaking as well because you could get more extreme kind of interesting shots. That's their history before their role in the war.
And it stands for first person view.
Yes, it stands for first person view because usually those drones will be used with goggles, like when you fly from a first person view. But, language had its own evolution in Ukraine in a way, because when we say FPV, we mean specifically the multi-rotor, like 7, 10, 8, 10-inch drones, kamikaze drones, or even bomber drones. And it's not always technically accurate because sometimes you're not in goggles anymore. Now you use monitors, and it's or you can use a fixed wing that is technically FPV, but that's not how we call it. So just so you know, when we say FPV, we mean a specific type of drone.
Det hele begyndte med, at de brugte ganske almindelige billige hobbydroner af mærket DJI, fordi det var de letteste at få fat i og de nemmeste at flyve. De har så nogle meget avancerede stabiliseringssystemer, som gør selve flyvningen relativt enkelt. Men det blev hurtigt klart, at flyvning kun udgør en lille del af opgaven. Det handler også om taktik, koordinering og anvendelse i praksis.
It started with teaching to use DJI drones. Because that is what was most accessible to everybody from scratch, and also because it's a lot easier. These commercial drones, they have a lot of stabilizing systems in them, which makes it very easy to fly. It's not complicated to fly a DJI drone, but flying it is honestly like maybe 5-10% of the actual task, and the other 90% of it is tactics, which was not obvious from the start, but once you're into it, once you start teaching people to use DJI drones, then you develop and you grow with them. And we just never stopped. We still started teaching them how to do the whole thing, how to build a drone team in the military context and the tactics around it. First, we have taught the military to use civilian drones. And eventually, we have brought civilians into the picture as well, because there are ways you can involve civilians, not necessarily to fight on the battlefield, but still be helpful in the defense sector.
Det ukrainske hjemmeværn er i sin grundidé civilt forankret. Mennesker er mest motiveret for at forsvare deres eget hjem, deres egen by og deres eget lokalsamfund. På den baggrund så arbejder de med at opbygge civile interceptor-drone-teams, det vil sige droner, som kan slå andre droner ud. Det handler om at lave et lokalt luftforsvar omkring byer og kritiske områder, og det har de faktisk allerede etableret i praksis i Ukraine.
For example, like in the concept of home guard is technically civilian. The idea is based around the fact that everybody is more motivated to defend their own home, their own village, their own city, and therefore, if you can create interceptor drone teams for aerial defense around these cities from civilians, and we have done that as well.
Krigsførelse med droner har grundlæggende ændret moderne krig. I dag der kan soldater tilbringe måneder eller måske endda år på frontlinjen uden nogensinde at se fjenden direkte i øjnene, men de vil konstant møde droner. Teknologien har dermed ændret både kampformen og selve forståelsen af, hvordan krig udkæmpes.
Drone warfare has completely changed what wars look like. It has changed some fundamental things about how we find wars to be. For example, it is completely normal for the infantry to spend, say, more than a year on the front line and never even see the enemy. But they will see a lot of drones. And it has made it a lot more dangerous to be on the front line. And there is this very basic fact that has been true about wars for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that is the idea that the defending side will suffer less casualties than the attacking side. Why? Because it's assumed that you can hide and you can ambush. With drones, no. Drones have completely leveled that field because they allow to see everything in a certain range from the front line, and in less parts, but even beyond that, you have drones for very different distances and different tasks. And now you can't hide. It has become very incredibly difficult to hide. And so you have drones for both attacking and drones for defending as well. The strike drones and the interceptor drones against drones. Technology is everywhere. Another thing that drone warfare has changed is the level of understanding of technology that a simple infantry person needs to understand.
Soldater skal også have andre kvalifikationer i dag. De skal vide noget om Starlink, det her satellitnetværk til kommunikation, som Elon Musk ejer. De skal kunne bruge en spektrumanalysator, og de skal vide noget om elektronisk krigsførelse. De skal forstå teknologi og færdigheder, som tidligere var forbeholdt specialstyrker, Man taler om jammer og droneopsporing til basal cyber- og informationssikkerhed. Så dronerne har virkelig ændret hele militærets struktur og måden, de fører krig på.
It was usually said that the best friend of the infantry is a shovel. Now it's like a shovel, a Starlink, a spectrum analyzer, and more than that. Because the things they need to understand is stuff that you would usually like teach special forces. Now everybody needs to understand how to work with Starlinks, what electronic warfare is, how to set up a jammer, how to detect the drones, and even basic cybersecurity and informational security, because everybody's using phones as well, and radio communications, everything. And counter drone tactics as well, right? Because everybody's going to be need to deal with that. And drones have entered every single structure within the military. The whole structure of the military has completely changed to adjust that you would have drone teams everywhere. This is not just one entity within the military. Say you have like a UAV, unit. No, it's everywhere. Everything has changed to accustom for the fact that you are dealing with drones now. And there is a certain distance from the front line, at least at this moment, because don't get too attached to numbers, they will like change tomorrow. But up to say 15 kilometers from the front line is a distance that we call a manhunt. At that distance, you are sure to be targeted by drones, by FPV drones. And they work in joint operations with other types of drones. When you talk about drones nowadays, it's no longer one simple thing, because there are many different mission types that drones are used in, and that will influence what kind of tactical specs does the drone have to have, what training does the team have to have, and where exactly in the whole structure it is being used, and what software they work with, and everything. It has grown to have insane variety, and this is just talking about aerial drones. When we start talking about ground drones, which is a fairly recently new thing, have been actively developing during the last year, now we have very good examples of fully roboticized logistics. Why? Because you want to save life. You don't want to have your people even go there. The most dangerous part of the work is getting to and away from the positions when you're in moving, right? So you want drones to be doing that, because you can lose a drone, but losing a human life is a lot worse than that. So now we have a whole infrastructure, at least in some units. It's not scaled to the whole army, but some units have mastered this very well. A whole infrastructure of drone logistics. Those ground drones are used in combination with aerial drones. They are also used for evacuation. They're also used for mining and demining as well, and almost as mobile artillery too sometimes. So we have been using technology to the greatest level possible to gain an advantage in that field.
Udviklingen inden for militær teknologi går lige nu ekstremt hurtigt. Ofte så opstår der nye løsninger hver eneste måned, og NATO's traditionelle teknologiprocesser, de kunne tidligere tage år eller årtier fra behov til implementering, så nu forsøger man at reducere det til 24 måneder. I Ukraine er processen flere steder bragt helt ned på omkring 6 måneder, og selv det opleves som for langsomt. Innovationen, den drives i høj grad af frontlinjen, hvor behovet for hurtige løsninger er størst.
Why is everything so fast? Yes, because we have a sense of urgency, right? Our lives are at stake, so we need to get a result as fast as possible, and we know that we can solve our problems with technologies. The dynamics are actually so fast that it is that our army is in constant state of reforms. Every 40 days, there is some kind of new technology out there. And what is called in the military a tech chain is, by NATO standards, usually took years and sometimes even decades. A tech chain is a process, like a timeline of production from need identification to implementation, the whole timeline. Years and decades, by NATO standards, how much it usually takes. There's a recent reform in NATO that is trying to bring it down to 24 months. In Ukraine, we brought it down to 6 months and still find it not enough. So things are very rapidly changing. It's a little bit of a Wild West, because not all you can't even keep track of all the processes going on, because people on the front line will be the most motivated to come up with these new decisions, and they will use whatever they can, whatever works, basically.
Could one compare it to the way that startups works in for instance, in the Silicon Valley with the innovation loops? I mean, you make a minimal viable product and then you test it and then you go back to the lab, make a new product, test it, and you have these innovation loops that are becoming faster and faster and faster.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. A modern Ukrainian military unit, it basically functions like a startup. It is very demonstrative that you need the pace of innovation to be so fast that it came as close as being in the military units themselves. So a lot of the most, capable military units will have a R&D process within the military unit because they get the fastest feedback loops, right? They are the ones stating the challenge, putting the task at hand, trying to solve it, and also testing it immediately on the front line. So that is as fast as you can get. And it has became that so, the evolution that way by itself. Like nobody has thought that I don't even find it to be the best way to do it because military units should be, fighting, not developing solutions. Another example of some military units, they just, get their own pet manufacturer that they specifically work with one specific manufacturer and they state all the challenges and they create products only for them before they get to something that. So if you are not working very closely with the frontline units, you are not creating something that will work. And this is something that I hope more companies from outside of Ukraine will understand, because if we have this effect even in Ukraine, I have no idea what everybody else is up to. Like it's very hard to imitate the conditions that we deal with on the front line, and also the human aspect and understanding the infrastructure that your drone is going to fit into. Because we are way beyond, separate technical solutions and tactical solutions. It's a whole system that it has to fit into. And if you don't understand who is going to be using the technology, what is the structure of the drone team going to be that's going to be using it, what is the surrounding software ecosystem that is going to have to fit in, then you're not making something that is going to be, used.
But I mean, how are the Russians doing it? Are they also being innovative like this, or do they do it in another way?
Well, I can say this. We tend to be more creative, and the Russians are a lot better at scaling. So each time they see a good solution on our side, a month later they're probably going to do it more than we do, and that is the biggest trouble and the reason why a lot of people in Ukraine try to be very secretive about it, so that you can at least push further the moment that the enemy finds out about it. For example, the interceptor drones, we were the first to do it, and then you see Russians do it at even a bigger scale, right? So it's a tough balance to have, because to be effective and fast, you have to have a fast flow and sharing of information between people, but it's a tricky balance between a fast sharing of information and operational security.
What are your main challenges right now?
There are many, obviously. One of them is that this is going to be the first winter that many interceptor drone models are dealing with, and the changes in the weather has affected the effectiveness of the interceptor drones highly, and there's going to be a lot of innovation happening there to make them less susceptible to these conditions. The other thing is that the scaling of the ground drone logistics right now is in separate units and is going to have to be in the whole army. Third thing is, well, I would say one of the biggest challenges that we face is, this moment in history when we came up with the term of big data. Because the amount of information became so huge that we couldn't deal with it with classical algorithms. We had to go further than that, and to gain some value out of this amount of data. I feel that our military is in the same state right now, but it was never built to have a good infrastructure of that type of these new types of data. So you have to bring order to those things in order to be able to apply the big data algorithms and AI to this information and gain value out of that for better decision making in your strategy.
And how can Europe help you?
Honestly, I think Europe should join the fight in one way or another, for many reasons. First of all, I mean, not to be the crazy person in the room, but we do believe that Russia will never stop if it is not stopped by force, right? No peace deal is like a peace deal is going to be the worst possible scenario because it will give Russia time to prepare, and next time Russia strikes, it is going to be so much worse than it was this time, because this time Russia was not prepared for the resistance that it got from the Ukrainian people, and next time they will be. So that is not a good scenario, I find. But also, if we don't stop, if we don't get to a point that the war machine will not be able to go on, then Russia will start probing Europe as well. It's already doing that, right? You had Shahis flying over the Nordic countries, and what was the response? Nothing. And that was probing, seeing how Europe would react. And if they don't get a response and they see that as a message of weakness, and that means you'll get more of that. Europe, by our understanding, is absolutely not ready. Like, we have gone such a long way during these years, and it's not going to be easy to just speed run all of this evolution in the case of, months ahead of you. So, couple of things. I feel that Europe needs to prepare, and it can be a win-win situation because we can help with that, right? We've made all the mistakes. We have tried many different things, and we can guide Europe to how be prepared for modern warfare. At the same time, this will allow us to get more resources that we lack at the moment. And I'm not talking about just, sending us weapons or sending us money. I'm talking about getting more brains on our challenges, right? Because once you are solving the same problems we are solving, then it will be that much more efficient in doing it, and we'll be that much closer in understanding how things have changed. The other thing is that we're not talking about sending us weapons. We're actually talking about buying our weapons. So I'm really hopeful that we will set up a good exporting scheme so that Europe can buy Ukrainian-made weapons, drones and electronic warfare, like the different kind of technologies. That will boost our economy and allow us to go on. Because at the moment, 95% by manufacturer, what is present on the front line is domestically made. So it is not something that has been imported, because eventually we came to a point that we understand that nobody's going to develop something that is going to be as curated to the conditions on the front line as we can make it, right? Having access to test things immediately out there. Also, we make things a lot cheaper, which is also important. You have to think about those things because armies are so used to making things, big and expensive and intimidating, and that's how you kind of used to keep people away. But in the modern world, you have to kind of step away from that, because if the thing you're trying to shoot down with a drone, say, costs less than what you're trying to shoot it down with, then math is not in your way. This is going to be a race of resources, and whoever is wasting more resources on the technologies being used is going to be depleted much faster and is going to lose for that economical reason. The technological and strategical advisory that Ukraine can provide to Europe, and mind you, we're not gatekeeping much. We're very open for the collaboration, but I don't see it happening enough. It seems as though Europe is mostly still very hesitant to be open to these kind of collaborations. And there's a very long way to go. And I really do understand we have this group, because from the political side, we have this group of people that are, tired from talking about war and don't want to think about the worst. And we know very well how talented humanity is at denial. Mind you, we have these kind of people as well that will not react until they have a rocket in their backyard. but that is like a stage you don't want to spend too much time in, because cognitive readiness and resilience is also something that I feel needs national level attention to work on. Wars don't start on the battlefields, they start and end in the minds. And this is also one of the areas that you can't really speed run that fast, right? You have to start working on it yesterday to get a result years afterwards. So people will be closed off to things they don't understand, which is why I personally believe that Europe should embrace a strategy where you boost your defense capability without even talking about war, right? The way to do that is you just look at the competencies necessary, that if you grow those, they will be easily converted into defense capability once that is needed. For example, that would be engineering, that would be becoming robotics, 3D printing, AI specialist, and drone pilots as well. All those areas can be implemented in a civilian context, right? Engineering, obviously, robotics, you can bring 3D printers to schools, open more labs, open more programs like that, put more money that way, but also kind of promote different startups that will build an industry around using drones for different tasks. That can be, drones have been used for a very long while in agriculture. There were different projects that tried to use drones for deliveries, say, just make the task a little bit harder, that say you're going to do delivery to any point in the country, no matter how far it is, and then you'll have to be solving more communication problems to get those to any point, no matter how good the connection is, which is exactly what we have on the front line. For example, we cannot use GPS. GPS is being jammed almost at any point of the front line, which means you have to think about build an alternative communication network. And it doesn't matter what you make that for. You can make it for, delivery drones, ground drones. But eventually that will be the same thing that you would be able to use to defend your country.
So dual use, but also dual use thinking, you could say.
Yes, more dual use thinking in terms of technology, and working more on the mindset of people, how they perceive these things and how resilient they are to Russian propaganda as well. Because the information field is becoming so much more complicated, not just because globalization, and the social media is allowing for the propaganda to spread as much as it does. You have to understand that it's more complicated than just pushing a alternative narrative. It's a lot more nuanced than that, and not as straightforward to spot, especially in the age of AI, where it's becoming harder and harder to detect what is actually true and what is not. And that is very actively being used to influence the political situation in Europe. You have to actually create courses and educate people how to navigate this informational field, because they won't be able to just figure it out by themselves. It's became too complicated. So educating people in the areas of informational intelligence, open source intelligence, how those things work, and AI, as well as promoting the dual use field. Work more closely with Ukraine. You literally have two options in this world right now of countries that know how to fight a modern warfare and what societal effects that has and how to resist those. And that is Ukraine and Russia. That is your only choice. And we don't have time. We really don't have time, because there's so many changes that need to happen to build this resiliency, to build this capability. I really do hope that Europe will be open to start.
Og det sagde Valeria fra det ukrainske Victory Drones. Hendes råd til Danmark og til resten af Europa er, at vi skal vågne op og se i øjnene, at vi faktisk lever i en permanent krigstilstand allerede nu, selvom man ikke lige kan se det, når man kigger ud af vinduet. Vi skal være parat til at omstille vores civile produktion af forskellige typer teknologi til militærproduktion inden for meget kort tid, og vi skal uddanne folk til at være parat til den slags. Det kan vi alle sammen høre mere om i den næste udgave af Techtopia, hvor jeg har besøg af professor Jan Damsgaard fra CBS, der har skrevet bogen Digital Suverænitet, som blandt andet handler om, hvordan vi skal omstille vores produktion til det, man kalder for dual use, færdigheden i at kunne producere både til militæret og til civil brug. Meget mere om det i næste udgave af Techtopia. Du har lyttet til Techtopia, og det var vores andet afsnit om droner i krig. I næste uge der sætter vi fokus på, hvordan danske virksomheder kan omstilles til såkaldt dual-use produktion, en blanding af civil og militær produktion, og især produktion af eller leverance af dele til droner, der skal bruges i Ukraine. Sidste uges afsnit om den danske softwarevirksomhed Roboto, der laver software til ukrainske angrebsdroner, den kan du selvfølgelig stadig høre i vores arkiv på techtopia.dk. Du kan også abonnere på Techtopia i din foretrukne podcast-app. Du kan diskutere teknologi i vores Facebook-gruppe. Den hedder Techtopia Backstage. Så kan du finde os på LinkedIn og på andre sociale medier og databetalingstjenester, hvor vi hedder @techtopia.dk. Du kan også skrive til mig på henrik@techtopia.dk. Jeg laver podcasten her hver mandag sammen med Anders Bredsdorff på genhør i næste uge.
Techtopia.
Techtopia er en ugenlig podcast om mennesker og deres teknologi, udgivet af Ingeniørforeningen IDA i samarbejde med .dk og IDA Forsikring. Mit navn er Henrik Føns, og det er mig, der bestemmer i
Techtopia.